So here we have a 90cc Baja all-terrain vehicle. It's one of the smaller ones. Anyhow, I picked this up for 40 bucks and I wanted to spend just a couple of moments on it to see if we could make it run. The wire harness does appear to be more or less complete, but people did kind of clip and play with it a little. So I'm just going to show you guys real quick how I would set up the wire harness to test if this thing will run. I cannot recommend running it like this because, once again, the on and off will not work, the interlocks will not work. It'll just give you spark until you pull the wire harness out of it. So just remember, this is test mode and test mode only. Now what you want to do is notice these nice wires coming out of the wire harness, and they all have their purpose. If you make the CDI happy, and the only way to make it happy is having all the correct things hooked up to it, you will get spark out of the spark plug. And that's over here. It looks like he even changed it. So let me just quickly show you how one would do that. Boy, he's got everything all wire tied up here. Anyway, let me cut that loose. I'll show you how to hook this up, and we'll have it running in a matter of minutes. If one is trying to get this running on the parts you have, it's always kind of good to figure out what was probably wrong. And then if I had a guess, my guess is that the spark plug wire was no good. The end of it was just kind of taped here, and that's just not going to work. So we're going to, I obviously have another coil floating around, so we're going to replace that. I'll get this off and I'll show you what I'm up to. The other thing we're going to do is we have like all this extra stuff going on here, and there's just a bunch of things you don't need, you really don't even want hooked up because they just kind of confuse things. And I'll show you what wires to cut and what wires to splice, and we'll give this thing a hoot of starting fluid and we'll have it running. I already checked the oil and it is absolutely full, and it even looks clean, so we'll give that a shot. So I've kind of unwound the wire harness, and there are certain wires you really kind of want to keep intact and certain wires you're going to cut. First of all, we know the CDI, the blue and white, gives you the pulse generator, and that goes right into this plug here, and we can put that plug right on the motor. Though it looks like he might have jacked it a little bit there. I'm going to have to make sure that we have a good connection, right? We know the black and red, that gives power to the CDI. So let's leave those two wires right intact. We know these two wires, the yellow and the white, these run right up into the voltage regulator. We're not going to use the battery on this thing at the moment, so I'm going to cut those and kind of put them off to the side so that they do not get into trouble. But no matter what, if you're trying to bring this back to life, one of the main wires to cut is this black and white. What does that black and white do? If you take the black and white wire and you short it to ground, you shut the engine down, which means anywhere along the lines, right? And you can see there's a lot of wires coming off this black and white. If anywhere that's shorted to ground, this thing will never, ever, ever start. That's when you get that one spark and, you know, nothing after that. So this is the first wire you have to cut. I'm going to cut these two wires. I'm going to double check this blue and white one to make sure I have continuity into the connector. And then just a little bit of wiring, you know, black and yellow goes to the spark coil. We got to make sure everything is grounded so there's a path, and we'll have spark. So here are all the spare parts that I took off that all-terrain vehicle, all the stuff that's not needed to make it run, or that's broken or whatever. I mean, here's the broken spark coil. I took the handlebar switch off, and I just wanted to show you guys how much corrosion gets in here. If you guys leave them out in the weather, that's what's going to happen to you. Just showing you little things like this is how they hook ground up in the wire harness, right? That's not a hack. That's the way it came from the factory, right? Anyway, so here's all the extra stuff. It's all been removed. We don't need that to make it run. Normally, what a lot of the extra stuff does is it charges the battery. It provides the solenoid for the starter and so forth like that. Once again, not necessary to test bed it. So here's what we have left, right? Obviously the CDI and the plug. Once again, the black and white wire is cut. The blue and white goes to the wire that leads you to the stator side, the flywheel side of the engine, and this goes to the pulse generator. Red and black goes to the power coil for the CDI from the stator, right? We cut the yellow and whites because we're not attempting to charge the battery, right? Black and yellow, you can see it goes to one side of the spark coil. The output of the spark coil, the secondary, goes to the spark plug. And then you'll also look at the lug on the spark coil that goes to ground. That's where I did my common. And you see one goes to the body, right? One goes to the engine. Gotta have that. One goes to the wire harness, which means this thing gets ground from there, obviously, and one goes to the spark coil. If all those things aren't grounded, you're not going to get spark. Now, I don't have to worry about this thing starting up and taking off because I took the chain on it. I just mention that because it's really easy, especially with these guys with the automatics, to they'll start up, and you know, a lot of times they'll start up way above an idle, and the next thing you know, it leaps right off the bench. I have the jump pack hooked directly to the starter, so round and round it goes, right? I tried the old tourniquet to try to get the two back tires to inflate, and I got them a little better on the rims, but no, they wouldn't inflate. Some people put a little starting fluid in here and torch them to get them to jump on the rims, but these really need to be cleaned up a little bit before that's successful. I did not rebuild the carb, and as a matter of fact, when I cut the gas tank loose, water poured out of there. Not gasoline, just water. So that carburetor is going to need to be rebuilt. And quite honestly, it's probably full of horrible looking white powder and other stuff. It's probably really not rebuildable, which means one's going to have to pop for $20 worth of carburetor to actually make this thing run reliably. The nice thing about this motor with the starter on the bottom, and not that anybody has a CT50, a CT70, or an Super Trail frame floating around the CT90. But I believe this engine will bolt right on there, and that gives you a 90cc automatic clutch, no shifting engine, so you can take your valuable Honda engine off any of those frames, put it on the shelf until the person riding it develops enough responsibility to respect it. Let them run on this thing, and if they're going to blow it up, who cares? They're not all that hard to find. Anyway, I'm going to put the camera in the stand. We're going to give it a hoot of dented up starting fluid, and let's see if we can't get this thing to start up. Okay, here it is. Let's see how it does. Starting fluid. I'm hitting the jump pack to see if it'll start. And remember, the spark is permanently turned down. I don't have to turn on a jump box or anything. So it started. Trying to hang on to the can while I'm What do you guys think? It actually runs. The exhaust doesn't sound half bad, and it's actually doing pretty good. The only thing I added to the ignition system to get it to run was a new spark coil. Everything else I just hacked from what was already there, right? I didn't add anything else to it. Let's talk about parts really quick. So I got a running engine with an exhaust system. That carburetor I'm extremely dubious of, but maybe. I should really open it up and take a look. Maybe that'll be a part 2 on this. Tires, I don't know. Maybe, once again, I'll get 2 out of the 4. If I'm lucky, I'll get all of them, but I'll get 2 out of the 4. I mentioned the engine, the exhaust system, the starter. All of that's right there. And I got this wire harness, and I'm just going to show you. I'm probably going to hop this wire harness around to show you how it could be used elsewhere on Honda all-terrain vehicles, to be specific. Back to more spare parts, right? We got our nuts and bolts. I believe that battery is done, but you never know. I got a starting solenoid. I got a spark plug wire, key switch, handlebar switch, and the gas tank, other than not having a cap, appears to be intact. So for $40, I think I did okay. You guys, and by the way, by okay, I mean, I mentioned that could go on a Honda CT 50, 70, 90. One could also obviously get this thing running again, put a nice big seat on it, and use it to kind of haul yourself around a swap meet or something, you know, perhaps put a tractor seat on it. One could easily enough extend this, right, further back. And if you move that backwards, put perhaps a little bigger sprocket on it, you could gear it down. I think these things are good for around 15 or 20. So if you double up on the sprocket, maybe get it down to 10 miles per hour. Once again, seat, move the seat back, move the rear axle back. And this thing wouldn't be a bad thing to just drive around a swap meet with the automatic and all. I do recommend getting the brake back onto it. But from all those things, it could be a fun little toy just to play with. $40 is not a big investment. I think it's worth it. I want to thank you all for dropping by to watch and comment and subscribe. Please remember, feet down, heads up, and get out and enjoy each and every day. Bye now.